So when we put life outside of ourselves and we imagine that what we're wanting is over there rather than here, that's where the suffering is going to come in. And we start that as a young child. As soon as the I comes into being, we start really playing with that sense of being an I, a personal sense of I. And the objects around us, all the objects around us, we begin to innocently infuse the objects around us with that sense of I, like my ball and my mom. We don't only do it here, becoming more aware of ourselves as a separate being from these things. We also infuse and project this personal sense of I into the objects around us. That's how we know ourselves, and how we conceptualize life. In the end, it creates more of a feeling of separation as we fragment ourselves more and more. It's not just this beautiful thing, it's a tree. So, over time, painfulness, more and more painfulness begins to set in. And we don't understand why. So what we want is to return back to a feeling of completeness inside. And so we imagine that that feeling of completeness is going to come and return back from having these objects return to us. So as we grow up, the objects become more grown up. We want a car, or we want all these things, this house and that person, and all these things that we think are going to satisfy us. The food, and it becomes a habit of mind, like you said. It really does become a habit. You don't even know you're doing it anymore. And even the most intimate things that we have the most closest relationship to, such as what you described as your love for creating music, and the longing that you have to do that, and how painful it is for you to not be able to do that. That's also something that you innocently put outside of yourself, that would make you happy, versus the originally where it came from was here. So it was projected at some point outside. When the eye is seen through, when you see the ephemeralness of the eye, and it's just a sense of self versus a solid thing. Over time, these things that you put outside of yourself, they return back. It's like all that breath that you gave. You're like God. You breathe life into things. All of that outwardness, it's seen to have been manifested from inside. All of life. And so you can still enjoy all these things outside of you, but you don't long for them in order to remember yourself, to know yourself as that. Until that's known, though, here, we mistakenly believe that everything outside of us, the things outside of us, are going to return that lost sense of I here, the lost sense of self, before it was fragmented out. And there's an intelligence there in a way, because the mind did project itself outward, but it's not going to come back home by retrieving those objects. You could never retrieve all the objects that you imagined to be real. The way that it happens is that it's seen from inside. It's seen, the source of all that projection is traced backwards, back to its source, back to the emptiness that you really are, the place where everything's birthed, all imagination, including the sense of I. So when you're suffering, it's a clue. It's your own personal koan that something's been placed out of yourself, outside. You wouldn't be suffering if it wasn't imagined to be outside of you. Because whatever is here is fulfilled and contented and at peace, even if it can't manifest what it's thinking it needs right then or wants. There can be an outward movement of wanting, but it immediately knows that what's true is right here. And it'll do that until that momentum, that movement stops. And it just slows down and stops.